This video is brought to you by my wonderful patrons. Consider becoming a patron today and support the content you love while gaining perks along the way. Tradition is not the worship of ashes, but the preservation of fire. Listen to the rustle of the leaves, the babble of the brook, and you will hear the words of green, a color who looks to nature for guidance, as it holds all the answers we seek. There's no need to complicate things. We are products of nature, and because of that, she is within each one of us. Even in our modern age, a time where we move further and further away from her, she still calls to us and impacts our very existence. Green understands this, and instead of pursuing a purpose which is fabricated, it instead looks within and to the examples laid before us by nature. We were not meant to be surrounded by brick and battery, as this life erodes the purity of our soul. Green states that our instincts will guide us, and if we listen to them, we will have everything we need. There is a sort of greed that takes over our soul when we believe we deserve more than we need to live. And in that way, we strip away our true purpose. To be green means to hold on to traditions and the old ways of doing things. And in following proven paths, we will lead a more balanced life. It is a simplicity found at the heart of our souls. The tragic part is that we are aware of this, but fear the loss of our conveniences. This mindset, masked as ambition, is what drives us further away from what we were meant to be. If I were to define green more plainly for you, then I would say this. Green is the color of balance and harmony, of stability, and of tradition. It is the slice of the color pie that does not seek out its purpose. It is instead confident in the one it finds itself within. Of course, this does not mean there is no room for quiet introspection. No. Instead, it means searching for your purpose through the examples laid out by nature and being confident in your place once you have found it. And in that way, a true peace is found. A peace that can only be achieved through accepting one's own destiny and their place within the wider world. Many colors act to enforce what they believe to be the one truth onto the world around them, while green instead goes with the flow and finds a rhythm in nature's sweet song. It can be hard not to speak in such abstract terms when talking about green, and that is because there's no rigid definition. Each person's purpose is different and is dictated by their environment, but when you do find yourself wandering from your path, step back into nature. She will guide you through example. Therefore, things like tradition are important in that tradition represents a system which has worked for many years and guides us to where we need to go. What this means is looking to the past and present for answers, not the future. Animals act in their own form of tradition in that their natural instincts cause them to act in a way that each member has for thousands and thousands of years, only changing when they must. And in that way, humans within green use tradition as a form of intuition. This does not mean green will not change. The difference is in the pace, as rapid change requires destruction. Instead, it is a personal growth through slow iteration, like that of an old tree whose branches reach slowly for the sky. For if it were to grow too fast, it would not have what it needs to survive, and in that way, it would perish. Or of evolution, which takes place over a millennium, refining the purpose of a species. If nature could stay as it is, forever in its natural balance, it would. And in this way, there is harmony. No one entity has more than they need, and each one has as much as they require. This is what I mean by nature's examples. If you're unsure of how green would act, simply just look to her lessons. They are all around us. Speaking of tradition, let us now continue the tradition of this series by discussing the utopic world for green. That way we can gain further insight into the core values of this color through example. It would be simple to just say that the utopia for green would be a world that was wild and left untouched by fallacies such as progress. But I want to change our perspective and talk about how we as people could achieve this utopia, or what examples there are out there of this idea. For one, it would require us shedding our rigid society and moving closer to nature. In this way, we would make a new home for ourselves, one that does not impede on the land around it, a place furnished with only what we need to live an adequate and happy life. We would hunt and forage for what we need and use every bit of what we've taken from the earth. There will always be a hunter or a gatherer. The issue arises when you take more than you require, thus upsetting the ever-important balance we all depend on. I believe in this way we can look to peoples who have made this way of life work until the day they were colonized, of the native populations of the Americas or of the tribes of Africa, people who lived and, in some cases, continue to live simple lives which are in harmony with the world around them and not in defiance of it. This, to me, is the space in which green sits. From here, I want to talk about the placement of green on the color pie, of its enemies and allies, and how their proximity helps shape this color, as it does with every color. I like to start with the enemies first, as their defiance of those colors shape much of its own ideals. First, we have black, a color of pure self-interest, one who will use up all around it for even an ounce of satisfaction. This, in green's mind, is the greatest sin. Green does not believe that the individual has more importance than that of the wider environment around them. In this way, it shapes green's view of itself, in that we must act with each entity in mind. The human is no more important than the animal, and the animal no more important than the tree. For where would we be if one of those things were to be removed? Everything would fall apart. Then there is blue, a color of ambition, manipulation, and logic. Green cannot understand what would drive a person to believe they know more than Mother Nature herself. We cannot apply cold logic to that which dictates everything around us. Also, if we do not believe that the ecosystems that have worked for us for millennia aren't already perfect, then what is perfection? Blue lies to itself and doesn't see the truth right in front of it, one that is ever so simple. On the allied side, let's first talk about white, a color who understands that there is a need for acceptance and collectivism. Another core ideal of white is the concept of order, and even though the way white goes about this is all wrong, green can see the merit here, as order is very much a neighbor of balance. The difference here is that order is achieved through rigid structure, and balance is maintained organically, as the world, if left untouched, will always find balance. Finally, there is red, a color who understands that things need not be so complicated. Red finds its purpose through impulse, while green through instinct. Green may not always agree with red's approach, but it does teach green to be in tune with the feelings inside of itself. As we can see, no one color is what it is on its own. It's a matter of pushing against its enemies and learning from its allies. Green is the color that sees the bigger picture, and through this perspective finds its destiny and solidifies it through traditions. Life does not have to be chaos or order. It simply must be harmony and balance, ideals which can be achieved naturally. We simply must be willing to forego things like greed and ambition, and instead aim to live a life which does not take more than it needs and is an active member of the circle of life, not one who interrupts it for their own gain. What green means is that if we continue to take and take from this world and not put back in with equal measure, then we do not deserve our place within it. If we can accept who we are and what we were put here to do, then we may flourish within nature. Or if we do not, then we will find that she will continue on without us, long after we have rendered ourselves extinct. Well, that concludes the definitive Color Pie series. I'm glad to have finally finished this one. I wanted to go at it with a bit of a different approach in a way that would allow you to get into the mindset of these colors. And I hope I accomplished that. And I would love to know which one of the 5 colors was your favorite, or which one you connect to most. So make sure you follow me everywhere and stay in touch, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this. With that, friends, I'll catch you in the multiverse. Bye.